Hello. Hey, we're here to see Terry Miller. Kyle Varnell.
Legal assistant now. That's why he's not leaving you anything. All right. Okay. Hey guys.
Howdy.
Hey,
Come in,
how are you?
Come in, Chief. Lieutenant, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, sir.
Good, y'all come in with. Let me get Allison too.
Okay.
I want to go over on this Johnson thing, a couple of things that the mayor called me this morning, and have a seat. Allison, come in. This is, y'all know this will hit the newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
And have a seat there. And let me just give you the background and tell you why. I mean, I'm your city attorney, I'm not the DA, so I'm not here to give you criminal legal advice. I just want to go over with you the information and how it came to me in an effort to both protect you all as officers and the city of Varnell. I got a call Thursday morning in the mid-10s, before 11 a.m. from Todd Johnson. And you all can imagine, of course, I've known him all the years he's been in the Bar Association in Dalton, and his wife too, Cindy, who are lawyers. And he said that Varnell Police Department, he said, your city attorney, I said, yes, it's still in, has issued a warrant for my arrest. Well, at first I thought he was spoofing me. I thought, well, Todd, no, what's going on? And he mentioned that there had been an email between himself and our solicitor, Brian Rayburn, that had been taken into consideration, investigated. I've since seen the incident report, Lieutenant, and followed it, and he was about to go down to the sheriff's office and make a $4,000 bond. And I said, well, Todd, I'll have to, I mean, I don't know what to say to you. I mean, I'll have to find out what the officers have done and why. And, but you know, I'm sorry, you, like I tell anybody, you're dealing with this. Let me find out what I can. And, well, I hadn't called him back. In fact, I've deferred some other city work because I don't, with this pending, I don't really want to get he or Cindy on the phone because there's not much I can say to them. But and so at that point I called Mike Brown. I said, Mike, I just, you know, I said, it's kind of upsetting. Tell me what's going on. He said, well, let me send you the incident report and let me send you the emails. So I looked at it, and this is only to Mike and to, and Mike at that point said, look, this is a police matter, and the mayor and I suggested that stay that way. So well, I do too. I said, but, you know, looking at this, what I'd like to do is go over the bribery and the extortion statutes with the officers because Todd has threatened a lawsuit. And I said, you know, when you do something outside the ordinary, bribery and extortion are pretty strong terms. You need to get it. You need to be sure you're well within your confines. And I did tell him. I want you to know. I said I really wish our officers had gone first to the DA or talked to an ADA before they took a warrant.
This is him, but I meet him in a meeting. Can you call me back in about an hour?
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you.
So that gives you the background. That's how I got knowledge of it. And so what I want to show you and what I suggested to the mayor today, the mayor called me. I was basically done with it. I thought, well, we'll just let it go into the DA's office, and Bert Poston can do what he's going to do. I don't know. Have y'all talked with him?
Who?
Bert Poston, the DA. Have y'all communicated? I didn't know if you
Briefly through emails, yes.
Oh, okay. About this? Okay. I contacted Brian Rayburn, and I said, Brian, I really want to know, are you, tell me about, I'm reading this, what do you make of this? And Brian said he really didn't want to be involved with it. That was about the extent of it. And I said, well, I understand. I said, we all, you know, we know Todd, that, you know, anything I say, I don't want my officers to feel like because he's a lawyer, I'm trying to protect him. I mean, if a lawyer's committed some crime, let the chips fall where they are. I mean, sincerely, for any of us. But the one thing, when I began to analyze it in Allison, I wanted to show y'all, and I was trying to tell Mike, and you may want to talk to Bert. That's going to be my suggestion, unless he's told you something else to do. Wouldn't want to tell you anything to do that he hasn't advised you legally, because
he extended an offer for us to come meet with him tomorrow to, in his words, convince him as to why there's merit, and I'm not doing that. I'm not going to interfere with judicial proceedings.
Well, let me tell you a couple of things in my view. Let me just go over this with you. I told Mike and the mayor, I said, I'm like that too. First of all, Allison and I are lawyers. We're not certified peace officers. You all are. I'm not a judge. So at the bottom line, hear me and understand I mean this. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here more as a legal advisor. The discretion of what to do, to prosecute or not, I think y'all will have to make that decision in conjunction with the constitutional officer in this county that has authority over this in the end is Bert Poston.
Sure.
And unless he recuses himself and says, I know everybody, I don't know if he will do that, but I mean, and he may not. If his office keeps it and doesn't send it to Chris Arndt and Ringo or Lookout Circuit. But what I want to do is show y'all a couple of things that came up for me unless there's a piece of information outside that email and the incident report that I've read that I'm not familiar with that y'all would know and y'all can correct me or not. This is what I'm seeing. Where's bribery?
It's this one.
Okay. Oh, this is extortion.
They're labeled. The second one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it back here. Here is my best understanding. A person commits the offense of bribery when he or she, that'd be Todd Johnson, gives or offers to give any person acting for or on behalf of the state or any political subdivision. Well, that'd be Varnell. And let me tell you what that means. Anything of value, I can go ahead and read it, with the purpose of influencing him or her in performance of any act related to the functions of his or her office or employment. To me, the critical thing is the solicitor would have to say, I was offered something of value in order to get something for someone that they weren't entitled to. In other words, just to put it bluntly, in our legal opinion, and I think the DA would, you cannot bribe a city. And you can't bribe a dog or a cat. I'm not being silly, but I mean, you have to bribe, the offer for undue influence has to be to a human being. So the critical thing is, does Brian Rayburn, did he get anything of value? Now, my understanding is, and I may...
That's not the charge.
Yeah, well, the charge is a...
Criminal attempt.
To commit felony. Well, who would... A bribery or extortion?
It's a criminal attempt. It's a substantial step to commit bribery. Everybody keeps on pointing out bribery. It's the criminal attempt to do it. And it was straight to Brian Rayburn. The email was straight to him. It was not addressed to the city of Varnell.
Right.
Was not addressed to anything else, a dog, cat, or person. Okay. It was addressed to Brian, who is a city solicitor, city prosecutor.
Right.
Okay. And it was sent to him with that part at the bottom that is offering money.
A small donation.
A small donation.
Now, what does that mean?
Any monetary... define a donation in any other way.
You answer, because you're the prosecuting...
a donation is defined as any monetary amount.
Now that's for a courtroom setting.
Well, let me just tell you, Chief, here's the thing.
Well, let me tell you something that's going to help you out a little bit.
Okay.
Everybody that is telling us that there's nothing to this case, okay, are lawyers. Only lawyers. Everybody else that we don't show the case to, because we don't want to show anybody the case or the specifics, we show just that last little line, that last little paragraph. The first thing they say is, well, that's against the law, that's bribery.
Well, who
Another lawyer said, that's bribery. There's case law That is bribery.
Well, I don't, a
We found
donation-
5 just before coming here. Case
A
laws.
honestly,
You want to play on words, sir? We're going to play on words.
well, okay.
And we can do that. I can do that all day long.
Okay, in the end, either this is a proper case or it's not.
And that's all we want to
But
do
let
as
me
a grand
tell you,
jury.
in the end, if it's not, this lawyer's reputation,
And we are not trying to do that.
I know, but it will be damaged.
But we're not trying to
we're not
damage it.
trying- do that.
Because some people that don't know, now let me tell you, everybody in the bar that knows him and Cindy knows that they are people of the highest integrity. No judge, Superior Court judge, or lawyer in this circuit, in my opinion, is likely to believe that he intended to commit a crime. I just want you to know going in.
Okay, well, let me help you out on my
But-
set,
But
on my
that's
part.
opinion, sir.
That's an opinion.
Well, it is.
But here's the problem. The guy that killed my wife took an SKS, fired 12 times into a house. He didn't mean to kill her. He still did.
Well,
Your intent doesn't matter. The motivation behind what you did doesn't matter.
Well-
He took the substantial step.
well,
Nowhere in this does it say that he has to acknowledge what it is.
I know it does. Listen, I get it. I've been challenged
I understand you
before.
know him,
It doesn't.
and I'm
fit-
fine with that.
Well, knowing him doesn't get him a cup of coffee.
But we do
as far as
not.
I'm concerned.
But we do not deal
Y'all are my
with.
client.
We are not biased.
Not Todd Johnson.
So hold on a second, Lieutenant. The stand we have on it at this time is it is in the hands of the courts.
I think the
So-
DA's where it is.
The DA, whoever, it's in their hands. It's their decision whether they're going to proceed with it or not, whether they're going to take it before a grand jury or not, or whatever they want to do. We've took it as far as we could go.
Right.
We would do that if a officer come from, hypothetically, if an officer come from Chattanooga PD, driving drunk to the city of Varnell, at 3 o'clock in the morning, my officer that is field sobriety certified and A-Ride certified will conduct their job. They're not going to contact the DA.
Okay.
They're not going to contact you, with all due respect. They're not going to contact the mayor. They're not even going to contact me at 3 in the morning. They're going to perform their field sobriety check. If they deem that Chattanooga officer is under the influence, that officer will go to jail. So in a similar circumstance, I understand he's an attorney, but he made that statement. It's in his own words. We did everything that we thought we should do to protect the city and answer the violation of the law that we see that violated the law, and took it before the courts. At that point, it's up to the courts.
Well, Chief, let me say, I respect your statement, and Lieutenant, I respect you. I understand. And it's difficult when you're put under a challenge. You feel like I'm under a microscope. I'm doing the best. And for a moment, let me just say this up front, and I've said this to the chief, to the mayor, I'm saying it to y'all. I don't feel like for a minute that anybody with the Varnell Police Department did anything, even if this turns out that it's not attempt to commit bribery or extortion or whatever the bottom line charges are, even if it turns out that way legally. I don't think anybody has intended in bad faith or to be malicious or, as you said, to hurt any. I don't have any doubt about that, and I would defend it to the hilt, and I absolutely mean it. So you can be assured of that. My concern is, technically and legally, as a legal technician, forgetting that he's a lawyer. I wish he wasn't a lawyer, because it does put that. Here, y'all are police officers. I'm a lawyer. You know, when you're trying to protect. No, it's that to attempt at anything has to be the underlying crime, and if the underlying crime can't possibly constitute bribery or extortion, then the attempt falls. Now, I'm honestly not telling y'all what, but I do think, Chief, you really do. I think you ought to meet with the DA, because he's the guy that's going to have to ultimately make the prosecutorial decision and go over with him what he has and what he doesn't have.
I understand.
And because I can't see, I'm not a constitutional officer. I'm just your civil attorney.
I understand.
And I'm making a suggestion that I think is intended from the heart to try to help y'all out.
I understand.
Now, Bert can tell you if he's going to handle the case and not recuse himself. And I presume he is if he's called you. I understand that he's already called your solicitor. Now, I don't know that, I'm not in the loop, but I was told that. I haven't talked to Bert, but I have talked to the solicitor, and because he called me. But I called him first, and then he called me back. But the deal is that I think he's the one that ultimately can decide if these charges have wheels and a move, or if they don't. And I really think if he suggests that the warrant's going to be dismissed, he'll do it. And I would never tell you, and I told Mike the other day, I'm not going to get on the line and tell your prosecuting officer or the chief to do one thing or another, because I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I will offer my legal opinion.
You know,
And my legal opinion in this room is that probably, and let me go back to your example of the guy on the road, the off-duty police officer that comes down here and gets arrested without y'all. No, you don't need to call me up at night, or the DA or anybody. I understand. But how many bribery cases or extortion cases have y'all made?
well, that's irrelevant.
Well, it may be, but I dare say probably none. I don't remember any in all the years I've been city attorney. And it's a little bit different set of law. I mean, it's not your typical tracking speeder down on the road. It's something that really I would encourage y'all in the future, and forget about lawyers. I'd encourage y'all always to go see the ADA before you make a charge like that. And just be sure that they follow you.
Mr. Miller, I've been a law enforcement officer in this jurisdiction for at least, we'll say, 6+ years total. In those 6+ years, I've never had to meet with an ADA or the district attorney to convince them of my case. They've made that decision based on the case and the evidence, and they've either took it to a grand jury or not. So this case is not being done that way, and I don't understand why.
Well,
I also don't understand why we are being bombarded with emails and phone calls from attorneys and politicians regarding this matter. If he done nothing wrong, like you're suggesting, then the case will stand on its own merit. So if there's nothing there in the courts, then there's nothing there. But if there's something there, and it does go to court, if the DA decides to do it,
sure,
which is at his discretion, I understand that. If he does decide to do it and the courts find something there, then they find something there.
Who is writing you? I didn't know y'all were getting bombarded with stuff.
Well, to be honest, I mean, when I get a phone call,
I'm not challenging you. I'm
when
just
I get a
interested in
phone
knowing
call
who's listening.
from our city solicitor, or not, let me rephrase that, not me, when our office is getting a phone call from our city solicitor,
Brian?
upset about this whole situation, and our city manager is getting phone calls from attorneys,
Like I called.
like you, that's raising the immortal Cain about this situation, and then I'm getting emails directly from the DA about this situation. Now, it's one thing if everybody's wanting to get an understanding, but that's not how this case started. Now everybody wants to get an understanding, but not everybody wanted to get one at first. Everybody was very upset and made it very personal. It's not personal to me. It's not personal to my lieutenant. I do understand that it is personal to Todd, because this is his job, this is his career, this is his livelihood. I understand completely. It's no different than an officer that gets put under scrutiny for a crime they either committed or allegedly committed. You know, once we clear the justice system part, whether we're convicted or whatever, once we clear that, then much like y'all deal with the bar, we deal with post. And even if we were deemed no wrongdoing in a criminal act here, post can still put sanctions on us here just because this come up.
Well, I'm not for y'all. I'm not seeing any of that.
Right? No. I'm just saying. I understand from an attorney's point of view how this is very devastating. But the case and the facts of the case are there. Now, if you or the DA or a grand jury, if it goes that far, or anything else, doesn't feel that the facts are there, well, then that's why we have the system we have. Is because that's how it works.
Do y'all know why Judge Phillips didn't do a pre-warrant hearing, which would usually be done in a case like this?
We followed the process.
I'm not blaming you.
Right,
I'm asking what is.
We followed. I can't answer for Judge Phillips.
Okay.
We follow the procedures that we have done for any other case involving any other offender.
In retrospect, for everybody. I wish it could have been aired out in front of him. But I mean, if he felt confident, and that's a protective feature. I've told Mike. I said your officers took it to the right place. The magistrate issued a warrant. You all didn't go issue a warrant and go arrest somebody willy-nilly off the street. And I understand the language that he used is not. You know, it's to be negotiating a plea. It is funny language, isn't it? I know what you're saying. And so, you know, I see all of that, and what I'm worried about, guys, and for whatever it's worth, and forgive me if I'm in left field and wrong, but I think when you get down to the extortion, if that's part of the base underlying attempt is where a public official, not a private person who is in a position like a city councilman or a governor or a mayor or to vote or influence something, extorts. I come to someone and I've got to vote on city council on zoning, and I tell the developer, hey, you do this for me. That's extortion, okay? Mm-hmm. Bribery, I'm just worried that the attempt to commit, that somebody has to have been offered money. And I guess I just so y'all know where I'm coming from. I'm not necessarily reading into that email exchange. I'm reading more of a very inartful plea negotiation by Mr. Johnson. I'm not reading into it that Brian Rayburn, I want to give you a donation. Now, I
But
don't
that's
know.
exactly what he said.
But was he offering it to Brian Rayburn or to the city of Varnell?
It was to Brian Rayburn.
It was
So if I
Brian
send
Rayburn.
a message to her, I'm not sending it to your office. I'm sending it to her.
But what was he going to give Brian Rayburn?
It's a donation.
That's the unknown part.
Yeah.
Now,
But
here's
you
the
were
thing. Do you
thinking
think you
Brian
can
Rayburn.
convince 12 people who aren't lawyers what you're trying to say? And here's another thing that I have a problem with. And I am starting. I had no, care. I was handed this.
I know.
Okay.
You
I
didn't
investigated
You weren't a volunteer.
I investigated it. I found what I found. I sent the warrant application to Judge Phillips. Everything on that application is verbatim. Even his misspelled words. And he's learned how to spell a Fed. Even his misspelled words are on that verbatim. Nothing. It was an email was sent from this person to this person, and this is what he said, which violates this. It was done verbatim. Judge Phillips was in no way misled on anything on this warrant application.
No, I'm not suggesting
And
that he was.
he's a thorough judge.
Very thorough.
He's very thorough.
He's
and
been a
meticulous.
detective.
He's very thorough.
Yeah.
So why everybody is coming after us on this, I don't understand.
Well, I think-
and the fact that you, even yourself,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to go after you, but I am sick and tired of hearing how he is an upstanding gentleman. He's been practicing for 40 years. He's very well known. That does not play a factor with law enforcement. We don't care who you are. We don't care how much money you have. We don't care if you're male or female, straight or gay. We don't care about any of that.
I
With us, the law is unbiased.
Right.
If it fits the crime,
Yep.
we charge it. So I don't care if he lives at the farm and has the most expensive house. I don't care who he is. Now, I don't know him personally, okay? I've never had any dealings with him. And if I have in court, I don't remember it. I don't know the man. I've heard people say that he's a nice guy. I hated to have to do this. But it's the same as if I get out here with someone whose job is his entire livelihood, let's say a truck driver. His entire livelihood is driving a truck. And I write him for DUI. He's lost his livelihood. And I'm not trying to do that to Mr. Johnson. But I also didn't make him send it.
Well, I mean, and I understand, and I don't. I'm glad that y'all do these things that way. Believe it or not, even with a lawyer, we do too. Quite honestly, it's But the thing, and you have to do your job that way. And so I do commend that, and I mean it. But what I think it's going to come back to, just trying to be practical, and I understand your side of it completely, is I think it's going to come down to legal analysis of whether or not there was a thing of value offered to a person in a position to exercise influence, and I guess that would be a solicitor, and that to do something wrong. And I mean, if it is, it is. I mean, but
Well, you've been a lawyer.
Yeah.
You're practicing a lawyer, okay? And if we break down that last part, a donation could mean what?
Well,
Other than a monetary value of money or goods
here's what
or
it could
service.
mean. Let me give you some examples. In the context of a plea negotiation, it could mean
No.
it is.
Simply the word donation.
Well, it's
Where in here
it's something of
does
value.
it? Where in the law does it mention it's different when it's dealing with courts? Where in here in the law
Yeah.
does it say that it's different because it's a lawyer? Where in here
It does.
it say that the definition changes?
Yeah, you're right, but who is?
A donation is. Look up the definition
I
of
do.
donation.
I'm with you about donation, but the donation, if you want to go by the strict language, is to the city of Varnell. It's not to Todd.
It was not addressed to the city of Varnell. It did not say we will give this to the city of Varnell.
It does.
It says the Varnell cause.
Well, I would encourage y'all.
Now, you can argue on what the Varnell cause is, but he is sending a email to our city prosecutor who has the authority to drop cases, okay, with our consent or without.
I understand.
And he has put him in it, to him, and it lists his name
Right.
at the top.
So he comes back, Mr. Rayburn, and says, I will offer pretrial diversion with a fine and court
He didn't.
costs. That's what it said.
Brian Rayburn said that he waited for him to make another email to justify it, or to show what he was going to say.
It didn't Brian, that's what Jamie Dance sent me for y'all, was Brian responded, I think, I mean, I may be wrong, and said,
No, it got sent to us.
I will offer, did he call it pretrial diversion
I haven't seen that.
with a fine and $52? I don't know if that's the court cost. In the context, yeah, and I'm just telling y'all, you don't have to argue the case to me, but I just, it looks like a plea negotiation.
I think that like I said originally, and like I've been telling the mayor and everybody else, the case is where it's at, and it's in the hands of the district attorney and the court.
I agree, that's where it needs to be.
That's where it needs to, they need to make that decision. My lieutenant can't make that decision, I can't make that decision, and we can't make this go away.
At this point, I totally agree.
So,
and I'm not
so it's
disagreeing with
whatever
you
they
on that
decide.
at all.
And as far as the suit that has been threatened because of this,
That's immaterial to y'all at this point, I
then
understand.
that is his right as anybody.
And we will deal with that if it comes.
That is his right, whether he is found guilty, innocent, or the charges are dismissed. All that is his right. He can still sue, even if he's found not guilty or the charges dismissed by the district attorney or whatever. That's still his right to launch a lawsuit.
So the only thing I'm suggesting to you, and again, I'm not telling you got to do it. This is y'all. You're the chief. You're second in command, and I respect that. I would simply suggest that you do have the meeting with Bert Poston. I think that's important because the prosecutor is the constitutional officer in this jurisdiction that in Georgia that can decide whether there are going to be charges brought or not, prosecuted or not. And I think that's and I would encourage you to listen to him. I don't know what he's going to tell you. I think as a lawyer, I know. But I'm not him, I'm not in his shoes, and I don't have authority to tell.
Right. But my question is why would I need to meet with him? It's not my place to tell him how to do his job. And I think that he would take offense to it in some ways.
Well, before you go to court, you'll meet with him.
Before we go to court. But
In this
not
case,
before.
right now, it's unknown where it's going. So
Well, he's going to try to decide.
It would be
that way.
it would be different if we were going to go into a grand jury and he meets with us prior to going into a grand jury.
Now, this is a felony charge, so it will have to go to a grand jury.
If he chooses to.
If he chooses to.
If he chooses so. So this is a decision that
He's already made that very clear.
This is a decision that rests.
I don't know what he's telling
This is
y'all.
a decision that rests on the DA.
He has the authority
And
to
so
decide if
he-
it goes to the grand jury or not.
He's going to have to make that call. And I honestly don't
Y'all
feel that
wouldn't feel
me.
better talking with him?
I honestly don't. No.
Why?
I don't.
Here's the thing. Unlike the chief here, I've been doing it for 16 years.
I understand.
Okay? And I've charged everything from aggravated assault to child molestation.
Yeah.
Now, I've never contacted you. I didn't know who you were until I became a lieutenant. I've never once contacted an ADA. I've never once contacted a DA. My only thing, which is what I did this time, is I think what I have, and I have been shot down by magistrate court. It didn't work. It didn't fall, and they explained why it didn't. And that's perfectly fine because I do the best that I can. I'm not a lawyer. I read the law, and like I said, I read it verbatim. I mean, it's black and white for me, okay? And I bring it before a magistrate judge. If he sees enough probable cause, he issues the warrant. You're stuck, and every lawyer that we've talked to, y'all are stuck on beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't deal with that. We have never,
probable cause.
ever done that.
I understand.
I have never made a charge and ever thought, well, that's not going to go through court.
Well,
That's not going to make
y'all
it to court.
understand, I'm not.
I know, but that's how your
I'm not
mind.
upset with you. I just.
But that's how your mind is wired, and
when
ours
I
aren't.
hear, and mine's wired too. When I hear my city and my officers are going to get sued, it sets me off to try to figure out what.
And everybody else is panicking
And that
too.
goes back to like my instructor told me when I first went through mandate. He said, any of you that graduate this class are no longer reasonable by the standard because you've been trained to look for things and do things a certain way.
Yeah.
And attorneys are a lot similar. They go to school, they learn how to look at things and view things a certain way. So that's why we have a court system that's made up of juries that are not attorneys and not police officers, so that way they can set the definition of what is reasonable.
Well, I
or
think
what is
the key point is what will the DA's office do with it? Because I think they're the office that.
And that's what people don't understand.
Has to
We
ultimately
don't-
tell y'all and us and any of us. And I was just, let me tell you, what I was trying to do is think ahead with y'all, with the mayor and council. Of course, I don't care if they get involved. It really just needs to stay with y'all. The mayor and Mike are aware of what's going on. And basically, if it's not a case, I was thinking, what do we do about it? And I guess what you're saying is, let's just swear it's in the DA's hands, and you can miss the boat by a little bit trying hard, and then you can miss it by a lot. And I just don't know how he's going to look at it. And again, I don't think it has anything to do with who it is or that he's a lawyer. I just think it has to do with the statute, like it does to me.
But everybody has made it that he's a lawyer.
I understand.
Everybody has made it about him being a lawyer.
I respect where you're coming from, and I appreciate it because you're sitting down and.
Because I don't look at, and no disrespect to y'all,
understand it better.
I don't look at lawyers any differently than I do anybody else.
We should.
Y'all have the bar,
We should.
we have post. Y'all are trained, we're trained. The difference is you're wired on step C and D.
Yeah.
We're wired on steps A and B.
Mm-hmm.
What you're talking about now is further down the line that we don't deal with. We don't deal with the courts.
Well,
and it's like if the DA decides to drop all charges, if he decides we're not going to even take it to grand jury, we're going to drop it. Me and Kyle are not going to take another thought about it. It's going to be like any other case that we've done.
I get you.
And we're not going to be mad. We're not going to be resentful. We're not even going to be resentful to Bert Poston. Our job is simply to make the charges.
I got you.
And then if the people that are responsible for step C and D decides it can't go to E, F, and G, then fine.
You guys coming down and
we have no malice towards the man.
spreading it out has given me a better understanding today of where you're coming from.
That I'm a loudmouth?
No, I'm sincerely.
I know a loudmouth.
I mean, I get the problem.
I get passionate.
I get the problem.
I love being a cop. I'm passionate about the law.
And
So-
I don't in any way disagree with you about no fear or favor. It's just who. I mean, I agree with all that. I think my staff would tell you don't know me that well. That I really, really do in what I do. the best I can, but it's like I told Mike the other day, yeah, I'm concerned about this, I'm kind of upset about it, but at the same time, it didn't have anything to do with him being a lawyer, it had to do with did we get it right? Did we get it right? And while I may disagree, Lieutenant, that this is a predicate act attempt for bribery, that doesn't cause me to lose my respect for you or to think that you intentionally ran out there and got
It's just different ways that we think.
And so, there we go.
Which is why juries are made up of 12 people.
Which is why I would think, and again, you do what you think is right, always.
What's gotten us, me upset anyway, I'm not sure about you,
I know,
is everybody they're hounding on the fact that he's a lawyer.
Well,
And that is, it's like they're forgetting what the actual situation is about. It's only about that he's a lawyer. And I'm like, we don't care that he's a lawyer.
I do
And
know.
in my opinion, though, that actually, and honestly, we are held to a higher standard. Anybody knows anything about a cop, we are held to a higher standard.
Should be.
In my opinion, lawyers are held to a higher standard
Should
be.
when it comes to the law. So the fact that a lawyer sent this email and not some Joe Blow down here who doesn't know anything, you see the difference?
Yeah,
Now, I do see a difference. I am holding Mr. Johnson at a higher standard because he is a lawyer.
Yeah. I got
But it's still against the law for this guy over here. But I could see you arguing for him, saying, well, he may not have meant it. But when it comes from a lawyer, I have a hard time not going strictly by what the law says.
Yeah, I hear
Because
know what
he knows the law.
Yeah, I think he used some unfortunate language. I think he meant pay a fine. In other words, a typical plea deal. That's what I think. But I mean, the language is ambiguous. I get where you're coming from. I don't disrespect it. But where I really come down to is whether he was offering $1 or not. He wasn't offering it to a human being. He was offering to pay something to the city of Varnell to resolve.
Well, a magistrate judge seemed to felt that there was merit.
I get it, and that's in y'all's favor. I mean, you didn't just come out yourself and go to this house and grab him.
So
Take
I
it
don't
outside.
really.
Todd has been practicing here for multiple years, so you say, and he's
I don't know how many, 30 plus, probably.
Yeah, multiple. So I'm sure that Judge Phillips is aware of who he is, and he still found merit to the case. So
I didn't even know he was a lawyer in Cahoot.
On the behalf of the city, that's a positive factor.
yeah,
And I've said that from the get-go. When I was first talking to Mike Brown, I just was concerned that I'm just telling you exactly where I'm coming from. And if I'm wrong, I'll be the first to apologize.
Well, I will tell you this as far as the warrant application. The warrant application on the bribery charge, I don't know if you've seen our warrant application before.
I haven't seen the warrant,
Okay.
and I haven't seen I've just seen the incident.
Well, just to let you know what Judge Phillips saw, is the top box is basically, very brief description of what it is.
Yeah.
That, he committed the criminal attempt to commit bribery when he did this. In the next box, it's an extended description. And I went into detail that on this date and time, an email was sent from from him to Brian Rayburn, and he did commit the offense or whatever, with this statement. And I put in quotes that he was to make a small donation to the Varnell.
You quoted. I get
Quotes.
it.
So Judge Phillips knew exactly. Nothing in that application came from anywhere other than from the email. Everything I did, like I said, was in quotes, was direct quotes. He knew about it. Now, that's where I have a hard time finding where everybody says that there's nothing to it. And I'm fine. If he can get out of this, and it's not, whatever he does.
I won't be helping him out, but let me tell you.
But everything, Judge Phillips had everything and still chose that there was no probable cause.
And that's good from y'all, for our side. Now, let me say, I don't disrespect. I just don't, you're here today. There's a difference. I don't disrespect with the honor with which you've done it. I just don't interpret the act the same way.
Well, we can disagree.
And that doesn't mean you've got to do what I say by any stretch.
Well,
I want y'all to do the right thing.
Yeah, you can disagree with this.
Yeah.
And she can disagree with this, and other lawyers can disagree with this. Brian Raybert as well. Anybody can disagree with this. But the problem that I'm having is, pardon my French, the shitstorm that we have incurred on this after Judge Phillips issued the warrants. We didn't issue the warrants. I can issue warrants.
I know.
I can arrest on a warrant, but I didn't arrest him. I did the warrant application, and Judge Phillips is the one that saw probable cause and issued the warrants.
And I think the sheriff's
So
department
if it was
might
so
come
far out of the realm,
Right.
then a sitting magistrate judge that I respect a whole lot. He's very meticulous in everything he does. Trust me, I did a search warrant. It was very
He
meticulous.
was a good detective in his years.
And he's been to the FBI.
Very thorough and very
I know it.
meticulous.
I know it.
When he does warrants, he don't just issue warrants. He actually reads them and goes through them. If
So
you have
that's
to
why
misspell a word, he's
when
gonna
people
correct
get so upset with us and say, like you saying, you don't know if we're so far out of the, I think if we were so far out of it, then
He
Judge
wouldn't
Phillips wouldn't have done it.
That's correct.
And I'm not saying you're not wrong. I mean that you're wrong.
I know.
Everybody has their opinion, but for us in the Varnell Police Department and everything to get this bombardment, when we didn't take I just want to scream at the top of my lungs.
I know.
I didn't do the warrant.
Well,
Judge Phillips did.
Well, I'm just, the mayor asked when I spoke.
And I know he's smarter than I am when it comes to law. So I mean, so.
When he called me today, I just said, well, I mean, he said, would you meet with the chief? And I said, sure, I'll just show him what I know and think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I'm doing. That's all I did all I wanted to do from the get-go. I guess I wanted us to evaluate it Thursday before he went through all of that and got the police blotter. If it wasn't, I wanted us to, I wanted y'all to think about it or go talk to the DA. I guess my only concern now is if think, and I may be wrong about this, y'all. Again, I do what you think is the right thing to do in the circumstance. It's your case, but if you don't sit down with Bert, I'm wondering if he'll take it to the grand jury. I mean, maybe that's your invitation and opportunity to, show him like you're doing me, why you did what you did, and otherwise, without that meeting, Kyle, will he even pick it up and indict it? I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking that a DA gives you all an audience on something that's, whether you want to recognize, is a little bit out of the usual to him in his day work, and he knows we'll have public resonance, whatever he does, yea or nay. It might, just seems to me y'all might want to meet with him, but I want to say it that way because I want to leave it in your discretion.
Well, there's laws that prevent the influence of the judicial process. You can't go and influence. Now, you can testify based on the case, and you can explain the facts. Well, this is the fact that I've got based off of this. But if you are trying to influence the DA, a judge, a prosecutor's decision, you can be charged with violating law for that.
But I don't think that would apply to y'all in the case that you're trying to make where he's asked. I mean, I'm just telling you practically.
And same thing
you
with
made a
witness
case, he's
intimidation.
asking you, come tell me why we
But there's nothing else that we can offer him.
Okay.
All the facts are there. That's why.
Well,
when we
If I had taken liberty,
what do you got?
I think what Bert is probably looking for, because of all of the conflict and just chaos that has emerged around this, I think Bert may be trying to understand the facts as you see them, and I understand that you set them down in the warrant, but because of things that have gotten all confused and different communications from different people, he may want to just get a clear line of what the facts are from our perspective.
And I will tell you today, again, up to you, I understand better where you're coming from. Having sat down face to face, put my concerns on the table, and have you come back. And I mean, I really do. I don't know if that'd make any difference to Bert or not. But I mean, and honestly, I haven't on purpose. I mean, unless you all or somebody asked me to call the DA or he called me about it, I wasn't. That's a call I wasn't going to make. Because for the very reason you said.
I just don't understand why we would I'm not trying to say that you're not wrong about the DA, but we're not trying to hang Mr. Johnson.
I do know that.
We're
I
not
do.
trying. I mean, if I got it right and he goes to court and they plea it down and it helps him out, I'm happy. If he goes to court and he beats me, I'm still happy. If he goes to court and gets found guilty of all of it, I'm going to feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
But I've done my job. So we're not trying to hurt him. We're not trying to, I mean, this isn't a child molester I'm going after that I just want to beat to the ground. This is just a person that, in my opinion, did something he shouldn't have done, and in my opinion, he should be held accountable for, because he is a lawyer. And maybe he should know not to make wording as he did, because it can rise up to criminal attempt.
In my opinion.
But
It's ambiguous.
But at what point does it rise to a criminal attempt in your
That's
opinion?
the question.
So, but what I'm saying is we're not trying to hang him. So I've never gone to a DA and tried to plead my case.
Okay.
Unless, if it was a murder, if it was something like that, I might, because I wouldn't want that guy to jail. I mean, I would want him in prison. Mr. Johnson, all accounts, I've never heard anything about him. I don't know anything about him, so I don't know anything. So I don't have we got to get him. We got to get him.
Okay.
We don't have that.
Yeah, I
We're just following the law.
I get that, and I don't know that Bert would think y'all were either. I'm just thinking aloud, for what it's worth, that if he wants to hear about your case, because he's got to make some decisions that'll probably have some public resonance one way or the other. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I see a downside to y'all doing it as your civil attorney, but again, I'm not a law enforcement officer, and I'm not sitting here really and telling you to go do it. I don't see what the downside would be. And I'm concerned. I don't know this would happen, but if you don't, I'm just wondering, will he just dead dock it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I can't say what the district attorney will do. I don't know. It's like I can't say.
And he'll keep getting asked.
It's like
and y'all will keep getting asked.
It's like I can't say what Judge Phillips was interpretation or thoughts. Or I can't speak for him or the district attorney, and I wouldn't even dare to do it. But the thing is if asked by anybody, and if people keep asking, they're going to get the same answer.
Well,
it's within the hands of the court, and the court will make the decision.
Well, the only thing I've got to say, if y'all don't mind, is to your mayor and to your manager, is that I felt like that y'all handled it as best you knew how.
We're trying to stay out of it.
And I will say that to them, if you don't mind.
We took the process we took on this case from start to finish is the same process we would take on any other case involving any other person.
Let me ask you this
And the warrant process we took is the same process that we would take on any other case involving any other person.
I get it.
Now, I will say this. If the email would have come from a city, so like Brian Rayburn, we'll say as an example, hypothetically, if Brian Rayburn would have sent that email to you, then at that point the process would have changed. We would have took the initial report, we would have called the GBI in to investigate. Why? Because it involves our city solicitor and our city attorney. But in this incident, that wasn't the case. It was not that situation. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's the only thing that would have been done different had those circumstances would have been different.
Well, and let me reverse kind of mine, and I think I told y'all got a pretty good idea what my legal understanding is. But and it's just frankly in this room with the city of Varnell, it doesn't go outside trying to be helpful as a legal advisor, and I don't want to cause more confusion than it's worth. But let's just say the example was that somebody that I offered, let's just use lawyer X, offered the prosecutor money to dismiss something. That would be right. That would be wrong. Mm-hmm. That would clearly be and there should be some serious consequences. If the prosecutor took it, he ought to lose his bar license, and the lawyer that offered ought to lose his too. That's pretty clear to me. But now and let me just say this, if lawyer A offered the solicitor, in terms of negotiations, a donation to the city, that's not personal to the prosecutor. That's where I know it's very technical, but I'm thinking that's what the statute requires, as opposed to a donation. And it is property, it is a value, you're right, there's no question about it, to the city. The language is very unfortunate. If Todd meant pay a fine, like we normally do, pay a fine and court costs, I wish you'd just said it,
Well, he went to
It's ambiguous.
a prestige
I know.
lawyer college. He went to a prestige
He
college.
went to Harvard, yeah.
So, I would think that he knew exactly what he was saying when he wrote it.
Well, he's an interesting person. He's kind of flowery with his language sometimes, but it could have been said better. I totally agree with that, and I think that's what drew y'all's attention. Yeah. So anyway, I appreciate you coming. I understand better where you're coming from. I'm not being critical of you. I want to let the mayor and Mike know that I feel like y'all have done it as best you knew how to do.
Okay.
And I haven't talked to Bert. I wouldn't talk with him without you, Chief. I don't think he'll call me anyway, because I'm not in the chain of evidence or anything. But if he did, the paper hasn't called me. I don't intend to make a comment to them. I guess at this point I tend to agree with you. It's in the DA's hands. Mm-hmm. Y'all meet with him or not as you feel appropriate or as he requests, and I guess it'll go from there. The other part of it, I tell people sometimes that are going to sue my cities, just get in line. We'll deal with that if it comes up.
Well, you can't live. Nobody wants to be sued, and we definitely didn't want the mess that has occurred. But unfortunately, sometimes that's a necessary evil that comes with this job, because it's like when Mike was talking to me about it, I said, Mike, I can have an officer go out here tomorrow and get an officer-involved shooting. He could have done everything right, but the family still sued.
Yep.
So you're not going to hide from lawsuits. That's those people's right, just like anybody else's right. It's the victims, the alleged victim, it's the offender, the alleged offender, the family of the victim. It's their right to sue if they feel that their rights have been violated or anything of that nature. That's their right, and there's no way of stopping that, regardless of how a case goes.
Sure, I understand. Well, anyway, whatever my legal opinion is worth, I wanted y'all to understand where I was coming from. And I understand a whole lot better where you're coming from, because I don't for a moment believe there was any. I didn't like the fact that Mr. Johnson started out attacking Officer Norris. We've talked about him before. He called him Morris. And it worried me a little bit that he did that, and I thought, well, I don't know who all's giving him that information. I know it didn't come out of the city attorney's office. I guess it's come out of the DA's office. I wouldn't know. I don't, but we've talked about that in the past.
That to me is irrelevant.
And I don't want it to be. I know it, and I believe that. And I didn't want it to come back. Well, hey, they're retaliating. Because Todd didn't handle that well. I would never come at an officer over something that I wasn't in the loop and didn't know anything about. He called him a rapist. 2 or 3 things he said in there that, in my opinion, he should have said. And I didn't want that to redound negatively toward us, that somehow we didn't like that. So hey, we're going to get back at you.
Well, no, it wasn't that, because Mr. Wadd has, he attempted to sue us in federal court and launched a lawsuit, a Wadd law firm, and had a nice little billboard down here that was bashing the police department and the agency. He publicly bashed the police department and agency, and no charges were taken against Wadd because he didn't commit a crime. That's the difference between him and Todd Johnson. So, it's irrelevant that he mentions Officer Norris. That's irrelevant.
And it wasn't the first time that people have mentioned Officer Norris.
Yeah, so
that had nothing to do with it.
That's their right to speak on that. People can speak however they want.
Because I knew the background. I knew where that all came from, because y'all came and sat down with me one time.
So-
And knew y'all were gonna have to at some point make a decision about that.
I was just annoyed that he decided to put that on there and called him Mr. Morris.
Well,
Didn't he get his name right?
I don't think that's the way you negotiate with a prosecutor, is to start picking at his his ticketing officer, but that's just me. I mean,
Well, that's protected under his freedom of speech. Now, there's legalities there as far as the facts of the comments he made could set up the grounds for a civil suit for Norris, but that's Norris's problem, Norris's opinion. But as far as the comments he made to me and to my lieutenant, that was irrelevant as far as him going after one of our officers or bashing one of our officers, because a WAD did it and nobody went after a WAD.
Well, yeah, Ward was exercising speech. That's true. You're right. And
A lot of speech.
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it either, but that's his right.
You know, his dad, I think, on the billboards.
Right.
I was able to put it.
Yeah, but even still, a WAD didn't make a comment.
No,
With this.
Ward didn't
Right.
offer
Right.
something to somebody. I get where
Yeah.
you're coming from. They're apples and oranges.
Yes.
But, yeah.
I mean, if he had simply said, we can pay if it doesn't get sent on, if it gets not adjudicated. Okay, you're talking about paying the fines to get it not adjudicated. I understand that. But the way that he's done it,
Well, we'll just see. I mean,
We'll just have to see.
I mean, I respect what y'all are doing, and I thank you for taking time to talk to me. You didn't
Thank you,
have
sir.
to come talk to me, but I just.
thank you.
Thank you.
And we're here to help anytime we can with anything.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Thank you. Y'all have a good.
Thanks, sir.
Let you go do some police work.
All right.
Hang on. Hang on. Let's get back here so I can. I got to go back on Cleveland Highways. I got to stop by the vape store. Hang on. Let me get over here so I can stop it.